today we have our seamless IoT session with Mona from the Deutsche IoT and Lukasz from Quectel. They will tell us how to deploy the cellular IoT without using physical SIM cards, and what are the current status, and what are the next steps, and what are the physical limitations with that. So I would like to briefly introduce our speakers. Mona is a senior product manager from Deutsche IoT, and she has responsibilities around the innovation projects, and one being the new SIM right now. And Lukasz is a field application engineer from Quectel with a responsibility for technical support services for Quectel wireless modules, and he knows a lot about these famous wireless modules that we could talk to him. So again, very brief housekeeping items. It is another 60 minutes session, including the questions. Questions are, as usual, encouraged. Please ask them using the Q&A feature. The session is also recorded and will be sent in a couple of days to all of you. And please use the feedback form at the end to tell us how it went for you. And to keep in touch further with IoTCreators and ask your question, please join our Discord server. And with that, I would like to give the word to Mona.
Thank you, Jansat. Hi, everybody. Yeah, as Jansat mentioned, I am a senior product manager in Deutsche Telekom IoT, and I am in the product management team working on different products. And since 3 years, I'm also responsible and helping the team to bring new SIM, the integrated SIM for IoT in the market for our mainly IoT customers. So I share my my screen. Okay, yes. Is it fine? Okay, all right. Okay, so let's deep dive into the new SIM solution. First of all, a very short introduction. I guess all of you heard about the integrated SIM, and yeah, in the first slide, you can just see the SIM evolution, how we started with the plug-in SIM cards, the big plastic SIM cards, and then the size of the SIM cards were getting smaller and smaller. Actually, the plastic part around the SIM card was getting smaller, so the chip part, the metal part was the same. And then the next generation was MFF, or machine form factor SIM cards, which is mainly used in the in the IoT world, in the M2M world. And the next logical step after getting the SIM card smaller is to integrate it and get rid of it completely as a separate physical component. So as I mentioned, the SIM will be integrated. It means that the SIM functionality and the SIM profiles will be integrated in the radio chipset. It brings a lot of benefits for our customers. One of it is the cost efficiency. You can imagine when there is no separate physical component as SIM card on the PCB anymore, then there is no related contacts, circuit path, and also space requirements for this part. And also the bill of material would get shorter, and at the end it has some cost efficiency for the customers on the device side. On the other hand side, we as operators offer the integrated SIM cheaper than the other SIM form factors, because there is no physical component anymore. We pay less to our SIM vendors, and we can offer it also much cheaper than the other SIM form factors in our portfolio. Another benefit for the customer is battery efficiency. We actually measured it in the lab that the integrated SIM is using more than 90% less energy and battery than the other SIM form factors. When there is a separate physical component, then the radio module and radio chipset needs to, wake up, check if the SIM card is there, even if the IoT device is not connected to the network. This is a path that happens in a frequency that, I don't know, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, it needs to wake up and check if the SIM card is still there. But when the SIM profile is integrated in the radio module, then this is not happening again. And this makes it quite a battery efficient solution. Another thing is design advantages. I mentioned that the physical component is gone, so then the customers can have an optimized hardware and also software design. They can plan and they can design smaller devices when there is no SIM card anymore. Simplicity is another benefit of the integrated SIM along the value chain, because everything is getting digitalized. So at the moment, the customers needs to receive their SIM cards after ordering it. So on our side, it means logistic and stock keeping processes, and on the customer side, also processes in terms of bringing to the production line. So this all will be gone. Everything is digitalized, and it brings simplicity along the value chain for our customers. What are the use cases that new SIM is a best fit for? So mainly the use cases in IoT that the customers require a simple connectivity. There is no special requirement for the customer. There is no user interface on the device for the user. And the devices are low cost and simple. For example, I have some examples here. In Telekom portfolio, we have some vertical use cases like IoT service button, the simple trackers, and also the sensors. And we had also an interesting R&D project with a sport company, which I cannot name it, but it was about the smart shoes and smart jackets. And specifically in smart shoes, there was no battery designed, and it was supposed to connect to the network with just energy harvesting. And for such use cases, which battery consumption, or no, the energy, there is no battery, the energy is quite important, then the leanest solution needs to be used, and integrated SIM was the target design for this kind of solutions. So for any low-cost IoT use case, new SIM or integrated SIM can be a right solution. The core values of new SIM when we started to design this was simplicity, security, and interoperability. The simplicity means that we took out all the decorations from the SIM profile, and the new SIM profile at the end is less than 1 kilobyte. The reason for that is that the customers just need a simple connectivity to the network, and we took out all the decorations and kept the parts that is required for connecting to the network, and that is enough for our customers. And all to all, the whole ecosystem is simple. It means that also the new SIM operating system is less than 100 kilobyte. It is important because we are bringing the SIM card and SIM functionality in the chipset and in the radio module. And for our chipset and module vendors, it's important that not a big, a big part needs to be used so that it can keep the new SIM operating system and new SIM profile. Security is another important topic for the operators. You remember that some years ago there was some kind of solution called soft SIM, and no big operators actually get involved because of the security concerns that we had. So we make sure that the our profiles are end-to-end encrypted. I will come to that later, how it happens. And for making the whole implementation secure, or making sure that the whole implementation is secure, we have an independent evaluation and certification for the security. Interoperability is another important topic because from the beginning we mentioned that NUSIM is an open ecosystem. It means that any chipset, any module vendors, and any operator around the world can participate, and there is no license fee or something like that. We provide a specification to everyone who is interested. But at the end, to make it work in this multi-layer open ecosystem, we need to make sure that everything is implemented according to the specification. And for that, we have some kind of, not we, but some independent parties are providing some kind of tests and certification to make sure that at the end, any profiles from any operator in the NUSIM ecosystem would work in any implementation in the hardware. I talked about simplicity. This is some illustration how simple the NUSIM profile is. On the left side, you can see the fully functional NUSIM profile. It is 335 bytes. And on the right-hand side, you can see an example of DT eSIM profile, which is about 100 times bigger. It is maximum simple and lean solution. And the reason for that is that basically we designed this for low-cost IT customer. It means that the low-cost IT customers usually in the most cases, they use the low power wide area network, narrowband IoT and LTE-M, and these networks are lean, and also it has a small bandwidth. So we were thinking ahead that later on, when and if we want to provide this feature of the over-the-air profile switch, it should be quite small so that it can fit into the, it can fit into the also the nature of the network like narrowband IoT. Yeah, I mentioned about the security and the independent parties. Any NUSIM implementation, the combination of hardware and software needs to go through the security certification. In this value chain, there can be a security test and evaluation party. For this one, our partners are, for example, Brightside, eShard, and Rescue. And then our security certification body is TÜV IT. This is a well-known company, specifically in Germany and Europe, that they provide some security certification for the implementations. And at the end, when this mandatory certificate is issued by TÜV IT, then it means that the implementation, the combination of hardware and software on the hardware side is secure, and any operator can accept that their profiles goes into this implementation. At the moment, there is 3 chipsets already certified and 2 are in the pipe. And as mentioned, this is a mandatory step for each implementation of NUSIM. Yeah, it's clear. We said that the NUSIM profile is going into the chipset. So it means that we need here a ecosystem, which includes the chipset vendors, module vendors, specifically. And for that, we have talked with many chipset and module vendors around the world, the big ones. And actually, to any of them that we talked, we could onboard them on NUSIM. They buy in because they also see this gap in the market that there is a requirement for a simple SIM solution for IoT use cases. You can see the big names here. Specifically, our first and fastest partner was and is Qualcomm and HiSilicon on the chipset side. They both have a certified chipset already. And on the module side, our launch partner is Quectel. So it means that at the moment, there is a Quectel solution available for the customers to use for a NUSIM solution. We have also other module vendors that are gearing up, and this will come hopefully next year for the new SIM feature available on their modules. I will come to that later. Another partners that we have on the new SIM ecosystem is digital security partners. I mentioned the testing parties and also the parties that provided or developed the new SIM operating system, like Red T-Mobile, like Keegan, and also GND is our infrastructure provider. GND is one of our long partners in this field. They provided SIM cards to us. They provide eSIM infrastructure to Deutsche Telekom, and they are also our body partner for providing new SIM profiles to our customers. To IT, I mentioned that they are doing the security certification, and Comprion is a company that provides test systems for the SIM solutions, and they make sure, going through this, the test that Comprion does, they make sure that the implementation is according to the specification. The certified chipsets, I mentioned 3 is already certified and 2 in the pipe. Qualcomm 9205, Goodix chipset, and HiSilicon are the certified ones. The available module is Quectel BG95M3. And also the coming modules next year is Nordic NRF 9160 and Murata module. Okay, so new SIM profile provisioning. This is an maybe interesting part for the developers, because before you received a physical SIM card, you were either sticking it in the device or solder it on the PCB. But now some parts are different. So if we look at in the value chain, there is a chipset manufacturer in the beginning, then chipset goes to modules, and then is an OEM or a device manufacturer, which is also usually our IoT customers. Then there is a business relationship between device manufacturers and the operators, and the operators has their partners for providing the SIM card generally. And in this case, there is also GND, our SIM provider, who offers also new SIM data preparator or new SIM infrastructure to us. So, and they provide these profiles to the device manufacturers. How it works in general, so the chipset manufacturer is implementing new SIM feature in the chipset. And in the first step, each new SIM implementation has a unique ID and also a secret key, which is stored in the chipset. This secret key and unique ID is operator agnostic. It means that it's not clear at the end to which operator profile will be loaded into this implementation, and it is also indifferent. Module manufacturers receives this data and make the module around the chipset. In some cases, module manufacturers also, or modules also contains the new SIM operating system, because in the chipset itself, there is no space for that. And yeah, and then it goes, this modules goes to the device maker. And on the device maker side, so it is different, this step, because there is no physical component anymore. Then you receive, what you receive as the SIM card is some profiles. How you receive it, you have a tool called Loader application. It's a software. It can be run on Windows or Linux or any system that you like. It is also at the moment available on the GitHub, and you can already download it and see, play with it, to see how it works. This Loader application is used for getting the profiles from your operator. It means that you order your profiles as before to your operators, and when you are deciding for the SIM form factor, instead of the MFF chip or plastic SIM card, you can tick on the new SIM, And then the operator, as before, receive your order. They forward it to their SIM vendor, in this case, GND. It is clear for GND, this is a new SIM order, so they don't need to prepare the hardware and ship it to the customer. They just need to make the profiles available for this customer. And then they do that. For example, if you order 100 profiles is made by GND, and it is available on their server, which we call it data preparator. And then we notify the customer that your profiles are ready to load. What does the customer do? So you use this loader application, you enter your username and password and log into that, and with the order number that you have, your loader application will connect via VPN to using data preparator. And based on the, not based, but using those unique ID and the public key associated to those secret key, the profiles are encrypted and you receive it on your laptop in your production line. You can do it in bulk mode. So if you order 100 profiles, you can load your 100 profiles at once to your loader application, and then you don't need any online connection anymore. And then you will load these profiles one-to-one to your hardware. And just in the hardware, the profiles in the chipset itself, the profile is decrypted with the secret key. It means that we have an end-to-end encryption of the profile, and we borrowed that from eSIM specification. Then the new SIM devices goes to the end customer, or in IoT use cases, usually the device maker is also the customer. But then the customer can, as before, activate the SIMs and also get the information about the, data usage and so on. And then the devices can connect easily after activation of the SIM to the network. To the network, it is also agnostic. It is transparent that if there is a plastic SIM card, MFF chip, or new SIM profile, the network doesn't recognize that. Okay, so there is different models for this profile provisioning. The standard model is, as I mentioned, is that the OEM has the loader application, and they have their they order their profiles to the operator, and they also receive it as before and do the provisioning. In the connected modules business model, it means that the operator has a business relationship with the module maker. Actually, the customer later on buy a connected module, so a module which already has some, a data tariff in it, and it connects to the network. This is something that we are looking into, but it is not yet available in our portfolio. So as Deutsche Telekom, we don't have yet decided if we want to go into business or not, but this is for sure one of the interesting ones for our IoT customers to get the modules, have one-stop shop, have the hardware with the connectivity already included. There are some module vendors that are already offering it with mainly tier 2 operators, and Telekom is also looking into that. There is another model for this provisioning step, which we call it delegated loading. It means that there is a loading agent in between. If you don't want to touch your production line, or you don't want to deal with this loader application and so on, you can delegate this provisioning process to another party. For example, for our launch partners, Quectel module, they have a distributor, a big distributor, tech module, and tech module takes this on behalf of the OEM. It means that you have your business relationship with the operator. For example, you order your SIM profiles to Telekom. But you give this information to tech module when you are ordering your Quectel modules, and you ask them to already load the profiles for you before delivering the modules to you. It means that when the modules arrived, then the profiles are already loaded. This is an extra service for you, and but you have your own access to the SIM platform management, and you can activate the SIM card yourself, and you have the ownership of the profiles. Just this provisioning step is delegated to another party. Good. Using profile provisioning over the air. I mentioned that it was important for us to make the NUSIM profile quite small, because first of all, it was going into the hardware, and it was important to make it small so that there is no big space required on the chipset or module side. Another thing was that we were thinking of later on providing this feature of over-the-air provision. You know that at the moment, eSIM for M2M, M2M flavor for eSIM is quite complicated and quite costly because of the whole infrastructure behind it. And we were thinking that if we can use the lightweight M2M server with, OMA standardization to load the profile over the air without a complex infrastructure behind it. This is something that we planned in release 2 of NUSIM. At the moment, it's not available. NUSIM objects is standardized at OMA list of the objects. And we already tested this in the lab, so we could load a new profile to the device over the air just using the lightweight M2M server, and on our side, and lightweight M2M client on the device side. But this is still a long way to go. We need to develop this with our module vendors, module partners. And the very important part that we need to take a detailed look into it is the security part. But this is something that we know that the customers require. They would like to have this option to change the profile over the air if they need to. And we are looking into that to provide it in the next release of NUSIM, hopefully. Another question that comes so often is what is different between NUSIM and eSIM? So first of all, we are offering eSIM, consumer flavor and also M2M flavor, and we will continue to do that. What we recognized is that there is a gap in the market. So there is no competition or conflict between NUSIM and eSIM. We are offering eSIM and NUSIM in parallel to actually address 2 different customers and 2 different markets. NUSIM is a lean solution. It cannot, for example, handle 2 or multiple profiles at a time. It's possible that you override the profile, but you cannot have different profiles and switch between them. eSIM has this option for those use cases who needs it. So I would say if you in your use cases require subscription flexibility and your device cost is not low, then maybe after talking to you, eSIM is the right solution for you, because it's but in the low cost IoT, when the subscription flexibility is not required, for example, a smart smoke detector doesn't need a profile switch from time to time, then the NUSIM would be the right solution for you because it's quite cheap and there is no a complex infrastructure behind it. Maybe you've heard about the GSMA Working Group 7, that they are doing this, eSIM for IoT. First of all, when we started this, there was no such a group. So, we tried to bring our own solution for the customers. Currently, it's not available. But NUSIM is available, and you can order it now. The working group 7 is still working on the feature set of the eSIM for IoT. And I can say already that this is very unlikely to become a simple and lean solution fitting for low-cost IoT devices. And when we talk about IoT, we're talking about a wide and a very wide part of the use cases, from a very simple one like smart smoke detector to very complex one like I don't know, the cars, automotive industry. And there is no one solution that fits all the requirements. So there are different solutions, NuSIM, eSIM, and MFF chip that can provide the right solution for the customer requirements. NuSIM is not a GSMA standard. Yeah, that we know, but yeah, as mentioned, when we started it, there was no GSMA standard, and there is still no GSMA standard for integrated SIM. We believe that when we make it an open ecosystem, we make it free for everyone to access to that, and it's a low barrier for MNOs to offer it, and it's not complex, then it can become a standard like Bluetooth, which is not a standard, but it became a de facto standard because it was a good solution. Just an overview. We already launched NuSIM commercially. 3 chipsets are certified. The provisioning infrastructure is up and running. At the moment, 2 other module makers are gearing up for launch, and we have several proof of concepts with the customers ongoing. If you are interested, just get in contact with me, or via IoTCreators website. You can order some NuSIM evaluation kit so that you can test how it works. NuSIM product launch with the first module, Quectel, is already in mass production, and 2 other module makers are coming next year. We are working on the features for the release 2. I mentioned one of them. The other one is NuSIM for 5G. And the midterm goal is that we have more operators and more hardware with NuSIM feature on board, so that we can give this flexibility to the customers to use NuSIM as they like. Okay, so that was my part. Now I want to hand over to our launch partner, Quectel. Lukasz is here today to give you some information, firstly about Quectel itself, and then about BG95M3, which has the NuSIM feature. Lukasz,
yes, hello.
Hands over to you.
So now a few words about the module, which is ready now to use with the NuSIM. So let's see on the next slide, first few information about Quectel company. As you may see, it was founded in 2010. I joined 5 years ago. So during this time, for the small Chinese company, we became quite big and global company. Now we have 8 R&D centers in different cities in China, but also in Serbia, in Belgrade, Canada, Vancouver. So we are also presented on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, a lot of sales office distributors, and more than 4,000 employees all over the world. Our production is over 2,000 million pieces in several factors. We also recently run our own modules lines in China, and we're having more than 7,000 customers, and it's increasing. So on the next slide, you can see a brief overview about our global presence. You may see a lot of office in China, but also pretty much in Europe and in North America. Also, actually on all continents, there are some offices. So we're trying to be really a global company. On the next slide, You will see some few figures about our revenue growth. As you can see, it's really impressive. And so this helps us to invest a lot. We recently built our own laboratory that we can do very complicated measurements needed for certification. We're also offering many services for free. For example, we can do for you schematics review for free. Also some measurements are also free. So you can really buying our modules, you can gain a lot of additional services for free. Yes, let's move to the next slide. Here is something not about our module, but just some overview about the technology available all over the world. You may see that in most countries, there are possibility to use the narrowband or Cat-M technology with many operators. So this is really a big market for modules like BG95. And especially that this module is supporting GSM. It is also helpful for the countries when still there is only 2G. So you can easily later migrate to the newer technology. On the next slide, you can see some general information about BG95 module, some size and some features. This is already a very major platform used in the market for maybe 2 or 3 years. So it has several features, but let's maybe go to the more details on the next slide. Here you can see the brief information about this module. So as I said, this module is supporting EGPRS, category narrowbands 2 and LTE category M. But you need to know that for the moment we are talking about BG95 M3, which is the first, let's say, most universal module, which can be used for new SIM. But for future, we are also going to extend that, because you need to know that we offer this module also in different variants. Yes, this is variant calls like M5, M4, M1. The biggest difference is that that's either it's supporting a different power class, some Wi-Fi positioning is added, but the most important difference is that this other module, for example, not supporting 2G, supporting only category M and narrowband, and in such a combination. The basic root cause is, of course, some cost. The other modules, for example, without 2G are just cheaper. So it gives you the great flexibility, because there is no any other hardware difference. So you can just design your application for BG95 M3, but then you can, for example, for some markets, select a different variant. Also, for some module, you can see that the power supply range is a bit different. So as you may see here, it can go lower voltage when 2G is not used, which is clear, because 2G consumes more power. What is worth to say more? Of course, very low power consumption in PSM. Yes, it's like few microamps in PSM mode. Regarding bands, a lot of bands are supported, including some, for example, 450 megahertz, which becomes more popular now in Europe. Of course, this module includes also GNSS receiver. So if the positioning is necessary, you can also just use the GNSS, which is embedded in the module. We have also version which is supporting voice over LTE or circuit switch voice for GSM. This Quectel, this is something which is worth maybe to say something. As this module is integrating quite powerful ARM processor, we are supporting such a let's say integrated system that you can integrate your application fully on module. So it means that you don't need to have any separate microcontroller. You can just program you can write some program which is just running inside the module. So after module is power on, application is starting and can just work like a simple microcontroller. This is the functioning which we are calling quick open. So for some customer, this is quite interesting option instead using external microcontroller. Of course, security, we have supporting SSL communication over different protocols. So many protocols are supported. We also trying to be compatible with older modules. So this our footprint is compatible with older BG96, also very good and known Quectel module, or even older M95 2G module. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So this is the first module ready for new SIM, which is just available right now. As Mona presented before, the chipset, Qualcomm chipset 9205 is able to integrate new SIM. So the module can be used like with the separate SIM, but just cheaper and reducing the cost of the SIM reader or other components. I can tell you that sometimes the design of the SIM lines could be problematic for the customer, leading to some problems. Also, the physical SIM cards in some trackers could lead to some losing of contact or problems like that. So definitely, new SIM, you can just get rid of all these problems like that. As Mona explained, there is a special security zone in the chipset, so this is not a normal, let's say, soft SIM, but something better, which is fully secure. And as I said, for now we are offering only BG95 and 3, most popular model with new SIM, but we are going to extend it over different variants or even different module. So I can tell you that BG77, this is the same chipset, but in much smaller size, which is important for some for example, tracker. The disadvantage here is that this module, there is no option to have it 2G here, but BG600LM3, this is the module which is also smaller than BG95M3, but includes 2G. This is just a different footprint because we have very known modules like MC60, for example, which is in this size. So we are going to offer this module to be able to be compatible with this older 2G module. So this is the possibility for it. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, at the end, it's just some brief information for you how complex was to develop new SIM. Because you may see here that we just started from the chipset from Qualcomm evaluation, but later there was a Red Team Mobile company which are helping with operating system of the module, for certification stuff, Compron for some functional tests, yes, and at the end we as a Qualcomm supporting, and of course Deutsche Telekom, yes, as offering this new SIM. So this was quite a big complex task, which is already finished, and we can offer you the ready product. Okay, Mona, I think this is the last slide. So we are now into the Q&A session. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Lukasz, and thank you, Mona, for this presentation. I think it was great. And we do have 2 questions. Yeah, the first one is, I believe, to both of you. So can you talk about how security is enhanced with new SIM? So maybe we can talk a bit deep dive into the security aspect of this new technology.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the new SIM implementation needs to be secured. I mean, in the specification, we let it open if our partners would like to implement it on the hardware-based security or software-based security, or the combination of both of it. In some chipsets, there is some hardware secured element that can be used for having the SIM profile in it. And in some chipsets, there is not, but there are some other solutions providing by ARM, Keegan, and so on that makes a part of the hardware secure with some software solutions that we can make sure that our profiles are safe there and no one can access it or see the content of the profile in plain text. In the processes, I think I explained that it is, we borrowed this part, the end-to-end encryption, from eSIM specification, that the whole profile from the time that it leaves our SIM vendor, data proprietor, or server is encrypted, and this will be encrypted all the way into the chipset, and in the chipset it is just decrypted with the secret key, which is in the secure element of the chipset. So that's why I mentioned that this is quite different than soft SIM and quite secure, and that's why the operators, the big operators like Telekom, can trust that. Other than TÜV IT, who is our security certification body, we have also the TSEC colleagues, so a security department within Telekom, that we developed this security evaluation concept together with TÜV IT in the first place, and then we handed it over to TÜV IT as an independent security certification body, so that the other operators can also, trust on the outcome of this security certification. I don't know what else I can add to that. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think it was answering the question. Thank you, Mona. And yeah, I continue with the more new SIM idea related questions. So this question says, are new SIMs hot swappable like traditional SIMs and eSIMs? Can you remove them out of the module and insert another one on the go? Or what do you need to change with your SIM card, for example?
Yeah, in the first implementations, as Lukasz also mentioned, at the moment, the modules that have the new SIM feature integrated, they also support the external SIM card. It can be the plastic SIM card or MFF chip. But the new SIM itself, the difference I mentioned between new SIM and eSIM is that it cannot handle multiple profile at the same time, like eSIM, and the customers cannot switch between them. But it's possible to overwrite the new SIM. So it doesn't mean that once you have a SIM profile in your device, it's not possible to change it anymore. You can overwrite the new SIM profile with a new profile. The requirement for that is that you have a physical contact to the device. So at the moment in release 1, we don't have over-the-air profile provisioning feature yet. And that's why if you want to change the profile or overwrite the profile, you need a physical contact with the device.
Okay, thank you. And another question is that to use new SIM with a third-party operator support in a specific country, what would be required from operator point of view?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's what we are why we are talking with the different operators around the world. The new SIM specification and whatever is required for the operators to understand the technical specification, the provisioning specification, everything is free, is license free, and we provide it to any interested operators. We can also plan some calls in the technical side. Any operator has their SIM vendors. If GND is one of your SIM vendors, which GND is a big one and is providing services to many operators all around the world, then it is a very low barrier because GND implement this part, the data proprietor for new SIM, on their AirOn platform, which is their eSIM infrastructure. And if you get the eSIM as service from GND, then with a very low barrier, you can make a contract with GND to also offer new SIM. If not, then your SIM vendor needs to develop this data proprietor or this new SIM infrastructure, which is actually not a hard one. I mean, in terms of time and also investment, it is not a big investment because DP is actually a subset of SMDP. So if you're offering eSIM, then if your SIM vendor is offering eSIM, then offering new SIM would be a subset of SMDP. So DP is a subset of SMDP, and that is mainly what you require, and where you need to invest, a bit, and also it requires a bit time. Otherwise, everything else in the ecosystem is license free and for free.
Yeah. Thank you, Mona. I think it was a great answer. And there's another question that goes parallel to this. Does all operators are supported by NewSIM?
No, that's not the case. So NewSIM is at a very starting point. So we launched it a few weeks ago. It's now working in Telekom network. So Telekom is the first operator offering it. And there is a lot of interest from the other big operators. We already talked with around 40 operators, big operators around the world, that they are interested and they're looking into the specification. There are some of them that are quite serious, and they are in contact with GND to see how they can make this available for their customers. At the moment, I cannot name it because there is no official announcement from them. But no, so at the moment, Telekom is offering NewSIM, and we are trying to get this ecosystem expanded to other big operators.
Yeah, I guess this is also where you mentioned the interoperability is the key also when it comes to the operators and connectivity providers. Okay, there are actually quite a lot of questions. I will try to continue with these questions that are directed towards Mona. Okay, this is also a good one. Are there any challenges in terms of roaming use cases and scaling it globally with NewSIM?
No. So if if there is a roaming agreement between Telekom and another operator, this applies to all our SIM range. So if your data tariff that you buy from Telekom contains the roaming agreement, for example, in EU, it doesn't matter which SIM form factor you're using. If you're using plastic, MFF, or NewSIM, this will apply to all of them. And if your data tariff is offering, I don't know, global roaming, this also applies to all of the SIM form factors. So from NewSIM is just another SIM form factor. There is no, in behind it or to the network, it is transparent.
So it doesn't make any difference or any further challenges coming with the NewSIM. Okay, thank you. And yeah, another question. Yes, we know that you cannot disclose the names of the operators, but can we expect NewSIM support in India soon? Are you planning to talk an MNO in India anytime soon? Maybe do you have any information on that?
We talked already with one Indian operator. Yeah, we provided the specification, as I remember, and they were looking into the technical specification in their SIM department. We need to maybe follow up on that. But one thing that definitely helps us is that the customers goes to the operators and ask. So if there is a customer demand for the operators, then the things goes much faster, and the operators also take it much serious. So the operator relationship is there. So we provided the specification, but the push for that to become a real product is something that the customer demand would do.
Exactly. Okay, another question is, I hope I understand it correctly, but does it work properly with eSIM platform service providers? I guess this is for NewSIM.
Yeah, I think it's about eSIM infrastructure. eSIM infrastructure, which is offered by the different SIM vendors, is called that server and that platform. SMDP Plus, and NuSIM DP is a subset of SMDP Plus. So if there is, for example, a SIM vendor offering SMDP Plus infrastructure, offering DP for NuSIM would be a low barrier for them. GND already has it. If it is not GND, then the other SIM vendors can also offer it.
Yeah, thank you, Mona. And I guess there is a question that can be answered with both of you. So the question is, how operator manages end of life? Will the module or chipset continues to request a connection on cellular networks, even if subscription is ended? So how do you plan that? So for example, the SIM subscription is ended. Does SIM tell it to the module, or does module know already? How does the communication between the SIM and module work when it comes to the end of life?
I can answer on the operator side, and maybe Lukasz has something on the hardware side to add. So it works like any other SIM card. So if you have a plastic SIM or MFF chip, when the data tariff or your contract is ended, then in our infrastructure, it is already known. And when your device is trying to connect to the network with that SIM profile, then our network would decline the attach request. And this is the same, exactly the same to NuSIM, like any other SIM form factor.
Yes, exactly like Mona said, there is no difference. Simply the attached to the network is rejected. You can see it on the module side. You can even read the codes from the module that there is no subscription anymore. So a quite general situation. Okay, so the last question left, because I said something about BG96. So BG96 is our first module like that. Module is still available, but the availability is quite limited. The module is also a bit bigger, much more expensive. So I would definitely recommend that BG95 as a valid choice. Also, BG95 has lower power consumption in many modes. So yes, BG95 is the choice.
Yeah, it's like this improved version of 96. Is
yes,
that right to say that?
Like this. I can tell you, BG96 was first module. Qualcomm designed it as a limited LTE category 4 module, but just by trying to fit into the category M and narrowband networks. But BG95 was the first chipset developed from the beginning for the narrowband. Yes, so BG94 it was just first try. So that's why BG95 is better.
Okay, thank you, Lukasz. And there is one last comment, I guess, about the previous question on the end of life. So with that, the operators are responsible of risk for signaling on networks causing outage. It is seen as a big risk of massive deployments. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, so I think it's not a NuSIM related comment. It's a general comment when it comes to massive deployment in IoT and in specifically in low power wide area network. There is always the risk, but we did some mitigation. We have some mitigation in place. We have a certification program in Deutsche Telekom ongoing in our the chipset and modules team. The chipset and modules are certified by Deutsche Telekom after a set of the tests that are done. So that making sure that on the chipset and module side, everything is working correctly. We know that the main problems with the signaling flood is coming on the application layer. This is something that we cannot, control. Anyone can control it because it's different from devices to device, deployment to deployment. What we have in our contracts with our IoT customers is that if they are using the certified chipset and modules, then they are almost on the safe side that this doesn't happen, and we will not ban them from the network. But if they are using uncertified chipset and modules, they are putting themselves in this risk that we can ban if we see some wrong behavior, signal storming on the network, and something that can cause us outages, we are allowed to ban the access to the network to those devices. And this is a general problem when it comes to massive deployments, massive IoT for all the operators. There are some mitigations in place to make sure that this doesn't happen or happens in a in a not big area.
Oh, thank you very much for your answer, Mona. And I think we are also through with the question just in time. So thanks for both of you for speaking in this session. I think it was very informative. New SIM is a new topic for all of us, so it was great to deep dive into that one. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jansat, for planning everything, and also thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And